Welcome back to another episode of Explore Grand County. Once again, I have the Superintendent of Grand County Schools, Mitch Webster, in here with us. How you doing, Mitch?
I'm doing good, JR. Good to see you.
It's been a while.
I think we did one in maybe early spring.
March,
March,
or something
right,
like that. End of March,
right.
something like that.
And then we planned on doing one at the end of the year, and our schedules just conflicted, and things got busy. But I certainly wanted to do kind of a closeout for the year and let you know what's going on over the summer and as we move into next year.
Well, let's start with the huge news that everyone wants to know about.
Okay, what's that?
And that is the alumni game and why Petersburg lost.
You know what? And I saw where Petersburg lost. I did not attend that. Did you go?
I didn't get to. I was at the pool.
And it's funny because I'm a Moorfield graduate.
Oh, well.
79. So that takes you back about 40-some years. But I guess it was a full contact game. Correct?
Yeah.
Did you go? You said you did not.
I was at the pool.
Okay.
Didn't get to go, but I'm sure there was a lot of aching bodies from the old man.
I can't imagine. When I was in college, I came back one time and went and practiced with Moorfield High School. And this was when I was like maybe 20, couple years old. And I hurt for a week. And I vowed I would never do that again. So I can't imagine what some of them feel like after.
I wonder what the oldest person was that played.
I don't have any idea.
If anyone knows, put it in the comments.
I
I'd just
really
like to know if we had any that were like 40-ish, because I'm sure they're still probably recovering.
Well, you think NFL guys don't play in their 40s, and they're in top condition, so I can't imagine what that felt like. But kudos to them. I'm sure it was a good fundraiser, and hope nobody got hurt.
It would be a lot of fun. I'm sure it was, reliving the old glory days.
Right.
So we finished out another school year.
We did.
Everything go as expected. Of course, it probably never does.
Never does that, but I tell you, it was so good to have a full year under our belt without any COVID issues, so to speak. No masks, no quarantines, no school closures due to that. It was just so nice to finally start getting back into the routine that we're all accustomed to. And really close out with graduations and everything. Went very smoothly. So
graduation was like a week early, wasn't it?
It was a week early because of the way that Memorial Day fell, and we were wanting to get away from Memorial Day weekends because we were getting a lot of people saying that took away from other plans they had for Memorial Day. There's pros and cons. It allowed people that they're out of town to get in for a 3-day weekend and see the graduation. But yeah, it was a week earlier, and I think most of the feedback we've gotten from that's been pretty positive.
What's our schedule like for next year? When do we start school? Do we have a start date yet?
Teachers will come back, I believe. I don't have a calendar right here in front of me, but it's they come back on a Monday, like the 14th maybe of August, and then kids would come back either at the end of that week or Monday of the following week. So.
Okay. And I heard some of the teachers, because we were trying to plan pool parties for next year. Some of the teachers said that you are actually getting out a week earlier. Was that a misunderstanding? Because they were like asking for the pool a full week before Memorial Day.
I don't think it's any earlier than it was this year.
It was the what was it, Monday?
The students were finished before. They didn't come back after Memorial
Day. They were finished. I guess they took their finals Thursday, I think is what it was.
And see, that would depend on how Memorial Day falls. Sometimes Memorial Day falls like on the 29th or 30th. Sometimes it falls on the 24th because it's the last full weekend in May. So if students would finish,
so maybe that's what it is.
I think that's what it would be.
Maybe that's so next year. It just seems earlier because of where Memorial Day falls.
I think that's what it would be.
Okay, I'm trying to see if I can open.
Yeah, we have to get 180 days in. So but that I haven't looked that far ahead. Trust me, but I would assume that's probably what it is.
Okay, so what's some of the things that we have going on here in our Grand County schools? Because just because the school season is ended, it doesn't mean that that's the end of planning and getting things ready.
That's exactly right. And we have two major projects as far as facilities go. We're having tile abatement and replacement at Union and Petersburg High School, quite a bit at Petersburg High School. Any of the old, I think they're 7x7 tiles that had the asbestos issues, we're replacing that with much nicer looking modern tile throughout a lot of PHS and Union, also UEC. So that's a big project. And then the biggest project, the tile abatement and along with the paving that I'm getting ready to talk about, are both part of what's on the levy call. We will be starting, I think, and of course, with weather, The plan is to start in early July in the Petersburg High School area and get everything paved there. Go down to the bus garage and the football field and hopefully Petersburg Elementary. Now, the cost of paving continues to go up. We only have a certain amount budgeted. We feel very comfortable that we can get everything at the high school done. That includes student parking and everything. We are keeping our fingers crossed that we can get the bus garage, football field, and maybe even Petersburg Elementary part of that done also. So that's the big one. You'll see.
It'll be a first for the football field.
Oh, it will.
Paved, man. That'll be nice.
Oh, that'll be so nice. I'm so excited about that. And I think Brent Nelson has told me he's talked to the Department of Highways, and I believe they're going to have the road in that area paved also. So everything will look newly paved when we return to school. If everything goes as planned.
Yeah.
So those are the two big projects we have going on right now.
So we bring up the levy, and of course it was a 5-year levy. We're getting kind of close to the end. How are we financially? Like, is this the last big project that takes the big chunk of money out?
Yes, as far as a big project, we had the geothermal at UEC. What was a big one earlier, and then the paving at UEC and the paving at Maysville were big ones. But yes, this is the final big chunk of things that we'll be doing. And the levy, and you mentioned it. I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to make sure that everybody understands something. Prior to the legislative session last year, you could run a levy anytime you wanted to. You could run it on a Saturday in February. If that's what you wanted to do, you could run it for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, however you'd want to do that. The legislature,
and by run it, let's just say that means put it up for a vote.
Yes, put it up for a vote. Yes, people can come in. Exactly. The legislature now requires you to run a levy during the regular election cycle. So we have to now run a levy either in May or November when a primary or general election is taking place. So what that's put us in a position to do, and this is probably going to sound a little confusing, but I believe our current levy, when it expires, it went into effect in 20. It was a 5-year levy. So 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. However,
I can tell you're a Morphil graduate. You had to use your
I
fingers.
had to use my fingers. That's exactly, still do. But anyway, we are going to run our next levy this May, which will be, and I know this May will be 23 for the 24 year, but it wouldn't go into effect until the next levy expires.
Okay, so
they won't overlap.
Let's try to break it down here. So this our election is in 2024.
Actually,
correct?
we have the
we do
primary.
We do November.
We have the primary.
You're doing it during a primary.
Yes,
one.
The primary will be coming up in 23.
In November.
Right? Primary will be in May, I think, is when the primary is.
We're in 2023 already.
We are in 23.
Yeah.
So it'll be 24. You're right.
Yeah. Okay. I was thinking.
Right,
24 May primary.
Yes.
Okay. So, because I'm trying to explain this for everyone.
Sure.
So 2024 is an election year, but our levy that we voted on ends in 2025.
Correct.
But the state passed a law or rule, whatever you want to say, that you can only do a levy during an election year.
Correct.
Hence, 2024 is an election year, or 2026.
Or 24. Yes, 24 either primary or general.
Yes, or 2026 you'd have to wait.
Absolutely.
And so, which either means that you have to do it a year early, or you have to lose a year and wait till 2026.
Right.
I hope that makes sense.
Right, and if we did it in 26, we'd have a break in the revenue.
In the revenue. Okay, which brings me to, you told me to go out on the street and kind of talk to some people. I think from the vast majority, almost to a person that I talked to, they were shocked that we even needed another levy, which I was at first when you told me. I was like, well, we did a 5-year levy. That's what the levy was for 5 years. So explain to the people why we need another levy.
Okay, well, first of all, I would say that and I think, and again, don't quote me on the numbers, but I think of the 55 counties, I think 47 or 48 of them have levies. and they're continuous levies. They run them every 4 or 5 years, and they run 80, 90, 100% levies. Ours is a levy rate, I think, of 22, 23%. There are some things on the levy that we have in place that we would like to continue. And number one is aids on all of our buses. That's such a safety issue. And to fund an aid on a bus every morning and every evening throughout the school year over a 5-year period is quite costly. And it's paid for solely through the levy. Secondly, the officers that we have in our buildings.
The resource officers.
The resource officers. Those are paid for through the levy. We would certainly like to continue that. Free admission to all the sporting events. That's covered through the levy. If we don't have a levy, we will have to do what everybody else does throughout the state, and that's charge admission to get into our ball games. Also, we have classroom reduction built into the levy, which allows us 2 professional positions and 2 service personnel positions over the state aid formula. So, for example, if we have a classroom at Petersburg Elementary or Maysville, because of the numbers in the state aid formula, that we're going to have to put 28 in a classroom or do a split grade, we can't pay for that without a levy because the state aid formula wouldn't allow it. But we can use levy money to do the classroom reduction. So those are some of the things we have in place that we would want to continue.
So on the first, the aids on the buses, can you explain why the aids on the buses were so important?
I probably can't explain it as well as a bus driver can. But if you can imagine being a bus driver with 70 kids and a fight breaks out, or you have a special needs student that needs special attention, or a child gets sick. There's just all kinds of things that can happen on the bus that aid is able to step in and rectify while the bus driver's trying to.
So a couple of questions. One, how did we do it for all the years before without an aid? First question. 2, is there not funding with special needs kids that help that besides a levy?
That it's probably in a child's IEP. We have to do it, but as far as the extra funding, no.
So there's no governmental funding or state funding for IEPs?
No.
None at all?
No.
No for any... just left my mind. Special needs. Any special needs kids, there's no state funding, no federal funding that a special needs child gets.
I would let my special ed director, Melissa Smouse, answer that better than I could. But typically there is not.
Okay.
We receive our state aid formula based on enrollment, and now she's very good at applying for grants, and a lot of times getting them for certain things. But to my knowledge, she's never applied for one for aids on the buses. That's something that's not covered.
Okay, so then that's aids on the buses. Resource officers. So we pay for, what do we have? One or
we have 2.
We have 2. Okay, and that's done with the levy as of right now. I believe Hardy County has 2. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Yes, I believe it is.
Say.
And from my understanding is they pay for the one themselves, and the commissioners, the county commission, pays for the second one themselves. If our school only gets money from the student formula, then how does Hardy County have money to pay for a resource officer? Are they like running less teachers? Or
I wouldn't want to speak for Hardy County. I don't know. I have no idea how they fund
so that's what I'm wondering is they have one without a levy.
Right. That would be a question
without a levy
for Sheena Van Meter or for their treasurer. I don't know how they fund those.
Okay.
I really don't.
So when the money comes in for however many students we have, let's say we have 100 students and you get $1 per student. So you have $100. Does that go just towards teachers, or is that everything that encompasses that, from buses to, I don't know, all the ins and outs or inner work?
And the state aid formula is very complicated. But basically what it does, it determines based on your total county enrollment, how many bus drivers you get, how many teachers you get, how many cooks you get, how many custodians you receive. Everything is based on your enrollment.
And so
and pro officers are not built into that
okay.
formula.
So the state though like gives you X amount of dollars,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's your entire budget for the year.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no other money that comes into the county schools besides, forget the levy,
Mm-hmm.
besides what the state gives. Is that how that works?
You also have federal money. For
Okay.
example, your hot lunch program is totally a federal hot lunch program. Title I, our Title I teachers.
No, what is Title One?
Those are, my wife just retired and she was a Title I teacher for years. Those are teachers that are trained specifically in reading for when we have intervention groups and so forth to give students additional boosts and help in that area. So you have your federal money and that's paid for through that. Hot lunch programs paid through federal money. You have your state aid formula, and that's really about it. And like I said, the state aid formula is based totally on your student enrollment.
Okay. So what I'm trying to get to is the
Mm-hmm.
bottom of the levy, because it was like almost to a person. Everyone was shocked. You know, maybe it wasn't just communicated well. It was like, okay, this is our 5-year levy. Yeah, we can swing 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
No problem. And now when I was going around saying, hey, in our next levy, and they're like, what do you mean next levy?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, the next school levy. And they're like, no, we did a 5-year levy.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I'm trying to
right.
explain.
Here's what I would say to that too. It'd be no different than owning a house, and you put shingles on your house. You're going to have to put shingles on your house again sometime. You're a homeowner, and any homeowner would know it never stops. It's continual maintenance.
Yeah, but hopefully I only have to take the loan out for 1 year. I mean, for one loan
For the house
to
yeah.
buy the house.
Right,
That's,
but the
that's the hope.
continual upkeep is not covered in your original loan. It's continual upkeep.
Yeah.
All right, we have 4 buildings that need continual upkeep, and there's some things that we really need in all of our schools because we don't have new schools. We have,
we don't.
you know,
which
most
would
of
have
our,
been
most
nice
of our
in the
counties
levy.
around us have new schools that their counties passed bonds to build those new schools. I'm in Hardy County. I pay extra on my taxes for the new schools in Hardy County, which I'm glad to do. I'm glad that they have those. I live in Hardy County. We don't have the new school bonds in Grant County. Over the years, we've elected to continue to maintain the ones that we have, which has worked out very well.
Yeah, so that's what I guess the question is too. How do we continue to maintain? Because now you're saying, you know, in this levy, we're doing some things. The maintenance of a school, I guess that's not built into each child, the money that the state gets from the child.
No.
So it's just up to each school to figure out how to maintain their own schools.
Well, what you do there, and we've not been real successful for whatever reasons, and actually meeting with the gentleman from the SBA, the School Building Authority, on Thursday. But the School Building Authority issues money to each county based on proposals and what they like. Or I shouldn't say they like, but what it seems to be in most cases, the counties that get the SBA money is when they build new schools and they consolidate, which is nothing that we've looked at right now. We're not looking at building a Grant County high school. We have a UEC for the mountaintop, and we have Petersburg High School for the valley. So therefore, we need to look at how to best maintain the buildings we have if we're not going to approach the SBA for like consolidation projects and new buildings. The buildings wear and tear; they get old. There are things that need done, particularly, and I can talk about that here in just a minute. Particularly when it comes to safe school issues. And I'll just move to the high school right now, Petersburg High School. The entrance of Petersburg High School, and I'll just use this terminology, it's a dinosaur. You won't go into any new schools now and see a school where you can walk into the door and you're immediately into the hallways.
Yeah, you're with the students
that's
automatically.
That's a tremendous safe school issue, and it worries me every day and every night. That's something we're going to build into the next levy, is to reconstructure that to where it looks more like what you see in new schools like Moorfield High School or other schools that Brent Nelson and I have visited. So that's just one example of something that we cannot do without a levy. Another thing we're looking at are the metal detectors in our buildings. There's no way that we can fund those unless we can pass a levy or get some type of grant, which it's a hit and miss when you apply for a grant. So those are just a couple examples.
Yeah. So let's continue with the levy.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the new things in this levy that because we want to keep the aides, keep the resource officers. I think there were what were they called? Professional for whatever.
Yes.
Extra. So that was
like
already
classroom
in the levy.
reduction.
Yes.
Classroom reduction.
Okay. So what else were you looking to put in the levy? Some things like that.
Right. And everything right now that we've talked about. And when I say we have a steering committee that's comprised of people from different walks of life throughout the community. A teacher, retired teacher, service personnel, business person, board member, a couple board members. That I think the group's of about 20 of us, and they're kind of the ear for the community. They bring ideas in. We're in a very preliminary stages right now. Of course, everything before anything is determined, we need to have board approval, and I'll be talking to the board more about this at our next board meeting. But I've just kind of run this by our central office team and a little bit with the board at the last meeting, and I've broken it down into about 4 areas. The things that we want to continue that are on the levy, and I mentioned those to you: aides on the buses, pro officers, free admission to all sporting events, classroom reduction. Okay, we'd like to continue those. Okay, what are the new items? What are things that we really need, not want, that we need, that unless we have a levy, we can't do? One is, and it's taking place right now, summer school. Summer school is funded right now through the federal government, through the ESSER money that we received. That dries up after this year. So without something built into a levy for summer school, it's going to be very difficult for us to fund that.
And why? I mean, do we know why it's drying up? Did the federal government just pull
it was COVID
or?
money. It was COVID relief money.
Gotcha.
And it was
how was the summer school funded beforehand?
We did not have summer school nearly to the extent that we have it now. We will have to scale it way back, and then I've talked to Vanessa about that. Will we be able to do it and offer to a select few kids? Probably. But right now it's pretty well open to just about anybody that wants to go. So summer school would be one. Another one that people have brought to my attention is upgrading our science labs. Our science labs at both our high schools are, again, to use the word dinosaur, they're just lacking in what our kids need compared to what you see in science labs and some of these new schools throughout the state. So that would be something that was brought to my attention. UEC track needs work. Petersburg High School track and the tennis court. The South Branch Center. We have our 7th and 8th graders that go to the South Branch Center now. And we've talked about this before. As of right now, our county board does not allocate any funds. Or we don't have funds to allocate for the types of materials that they need to do those projects and activities they do every day. That's something that's just, and again, these are just things that are thrown out there.
Yeah.
Okay. And then another one that was brought to my attention, we need to put something in the levy to support our band. Instruments, a variety of things. So those were some new ideas that were brought to me.
And what are we looking at levy-wise money, like a figure that's...
I would not want to see the levy rate change. I would like to be able to say we're running this. It's just continuous, the tax rate that you have. It's and people have told me, they've come and told me, so Mr. Webster, I go to 3 ball games with my family, and I've saved what I paid in taxes is less than what I paid to go to 3 ball games. So I mean, there are a lot of benefits that come from it. Now the next thing, and again, I want to make sure that this is the levy. We haven't even started putting the levy call together, but I know in talking to superintendents around the state that have these 80, 90, 100% levies that they pass them with 90% of the vote. They pass them with 90% of the vote. They put, and I like this idea, but again, it won't be just my decision. They put things in there because, first of all, let's talk about the bottom line is we want to take care of students. But there's more to the student than just the math and reading scores. They're important, but there's more to that student than just the math and reading scores. We want to address the needs of the whole student, and that takes, as they say, a village. And we really would like to, and we're making into our strategic plan, one of our goals is to try to be more community oriented and see a really good bond between the school and the community. So we're looking at putting something into the levy. And again, I'd like to do some kind of survey to see what kind of support this would get. But these really, if we could keep the levy rate where it's at and be able to do some of the following things, do something for the library. Our kids visit the library. They get books from the library. Is there some way we could help the library? 4-H. Is there something we could do to help 4-H in the levy? I know a lot of levies across the state do that. The Arts Center, the Landis Arts Center. We use that for some of our trainings, and we've had programs there for kids from time to time. And another thing we're looking at, just throwing out there, the Little League program. When I was a kid, and I don't know how it was for you, but I didn't have to pay to play. And I just think it's so sad when kids used to tell me they had to pick one sport to play because they couldn't afford they couldn't play baseball because they paid to play soccer, and that's all they could afford. It's extremely expensive for kids to play. And just looking at the numbers, we think we could throw that in a levy, and it would really be a small ticket item compared to the size of the levy.
So then the question becomes: this is not a school levy then?
Part of it is involving the community for the whole child. So do we want that or not? That's the question that I'm not saying that I'm going to be arbitrary and say it's what it's going to be. We want to know, is that what the community would like to see? Would we like to see that help address the needs of the whole child outside of just the school system?
And that's what I'm trying to say is, we've thought of this, whether wrongly or rightly, of a school as a school levy to help students in school. And I'm not picking on any of these things, but it's like some of those, now the library's not extracurricular activity, but 4-H and the Little League and, the Landis Arts Center. I mean, you all visit that. I assume you'd pay a rent anyway, but like it's extracurricular activities. Is there something that can be used more for schooling? Can I don't know what this would end up being, a percentage or how much. I mean, let's say it's $20 million that we're doing at the 5-year, and this is $1 million.
Well, I think what you would do there, you would look at levies across the state that are successful in running their levies and see what kind of percentage they do to help.
Because I will say, you were saying like 90% voted yes. We did not have that.
No, we had about 51 or 52.
Yeah, it was close. It was close. So I think the devil is going to be in the details. So it's just something to think about. With that is, to me, the first thing that pops in my mind is, well, that's not school. Right. This is just first thing. Nothing against them. Right. I mean, I played Little League when I was a kid growing up too, and I DJ for the 4-H camp. Right. But I'm just thinking, wait, are we doing schools or?
It's called, it's called a school levy because the school system runs the levy. But you can. One thing we were told by the attorneys and what other superintendents have told me throughout the state, you can put anything in the levy you want to.
So if
we would like to make sure it's something always geared toward helping kids some way, whether it's specifically in the classroom or in the community at large.
So if the school decided, and I'm just throwing this out, so if the school decided, hey, we're going to run a levy because we're going to build an apartment.
I don't think you would ever find 5 board members or a superintendent.
Well, I'm just saying, but what you're saying is that can be put in the levy because it's just the school running the levy.
I think you would have to run that by your attorney and say, does this fall under the guidelines? But
okay. So there are guidelines for the school running a levy.
Yes, but I'm just saying that as far as helping your civic groups and organizations, that's relatively the norm on a lot of the levy calls that we've looked at. So again, I think what you have to do is put a survey out there and get a feel from the community. Is this something?
Well, they can comment.
They can comment. Yeah, is this something you would support? If it's not something that the community would like to see or support, then I don't think we should put it in a levy. So I don't know. Yeah, these are ideas. These are ideas that have come to me.
Yeah, and I'm asking questions as a citizen who, like I said, always just thought school levy. Right. But it's a levy being ran by the school system.
Right. Yeah, if these are things that we don't want to do, then we won't put them in the levy. It's that simple. I'd like to see what the community feels about that moving forward.
Yeah.
Now,
So-
the other things that are, again, the fourth area would be facilities. I can take you up. Brent Nelson can take you up and show you. PHS needs a new rooftop.
Yeah, we were talking about this the other day.
And that's what I was saying.
how
When you
old is
build
that
your
building?
house, that school was built in the 60s.
60s.
So
It's got some age.
and the school roof only lasts about 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
That's all you get out of the school roof. So when you were saying people were surprised that we just ran a levy, we continuously have maintenance. You can't have a school system fix something and expect it never to break down or never have a problem with it again.
So where did the funding for the last roof come from? It would have been 10 or
before my
15
time,
years
so I
ago.
don't want to say. I don't know. They would have probably gone to the SBA, hopefully gotten some money from the SBA. SBA typically prefers to fund new projects rather than a maintenance. They would prefer to build a new school. In most cases, at least that's been my take on it. But they will. They'll give money, and we're going to talk to the SBA. I think I told you Thursday, a gentleman's coming from the SBA, and let him see our roof and the condition that it's in. Another thing, the countywide metal detectors. We'd like to have those set up in all of our schools.
Is there going to be just one entrance period? Like, do teachers are teachers allowed to still use another entrance? Do they have to come in through the metal detectors?
Brent
How's that
and I
gonna go?
went to Marion County and looked at what they did in Marion, and teachers were able to come in other entrances with their fob, but all the kids went through one entrance in the front of the building where the metal detectors were. And those are things I've told the folks that are really pro metal detectors. There are a lot of things we need to iron out. It's more than just the funding. As to far how we're going to put them in place and have them work.
I don't know if you've been listening to some of the people running for president, but they asked them a question about, the school shootings and things like that. And a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them were pushing one entrance only. Of course, the one school shooting, I can't remember if it was at Parkland. Someone left a back door open.
Right.
You leave a back door. Was that Parkland?
That was the one was that in Texas? Uvalde, I believe.
I can't remember. It's the one where the police didn't go in and got shunned for not going in.
Yeah, I think
I
that's
can't
Uvalde.
remember. But is that something that we've ever thought about? I mean, because there are a lot of entrances or exits, however you want to say it,
Right.
to the school.
I think PHS has two. The remainder of our schools only have one. And it's something we would have to address at PHS because I would not want to have metal detectors at two different sites at the school. I think that would just be too hard to man. So you are exactly right. Perfect world, one entrance, man it with the metal detectors, and you feel relatively
But
safe.
I'm talking even just the rest of the doors. There's a lot of doors in Petersburg High School. Thinking Petersburg High
Right.
School.
They should be, from the exterior, should be locked at all times. They should be.
And this one was supposed to be at the school shooting too.
They should be, and I've given the principals a directive that any door that is propped open, and we know who propped it open, we'll get a letter of reprimand. There's just no way around it. It's a safety issue that we can't ignore. The doors have to be locked at all times.
So metal detectors.
and again, going back to PES, Petersburg Elementary School, it's the original gym floor. Little League uses that floor throughout the year. We want Little League. We want that community involvement, but it's wore out. Petersburg Elementary School needs a gym floor. Another one that's a dinosaur, and it's ready to go anytime. The lighting at the Petersburg High School's baseball and football field. I don't know what we'll do if it goes out because we don't have the funding right now to we'll play day games. And that very well might be what does happen because our system, again, the lighting system we have there hasn't been upgraded. I don't think someone told me maybe in the 80s. They're just wore out. So when you ask that question, why another levy? It's just like doing continuous maintenance to your car or to your house. The minute you stop doing that, you can expect to have problems and expect it to go downhill. So these are the big ticket items that we have identified, that we've pretty much made the commitment in Grant County that we like the four schools we have, the geographic location. We're not in favor of consolidation. So if that's the case, if we're not going to run bonds to build new schools, then let's do everything we can to keep the 4 schools we have in tip-top shape. So that's the reasoning behind all that, JR. And again, the other things that I threw out there, if you get a lot of feedback and we get a lot of feedback that those aren't things that people would like to see happen, then we won't run them. But again, if we can do those things and keep the levy rate exactly where it is, nobody's taxes go up, and we just continuously make our school system better and build that bridge between community and school so that we are all working together for the whole child, I think it has tremendous upside.
How many counties did you say had a levy?
You would have to look. I think 47. I'm please don't quote me on that, but I know it's in the 40s. I'm thinking 47.
Let's go visit the ones that don't. See what they're doing.
Well, I could tell. Okay.
Does Hardy County still have a levy?
Hardy County does not. Hardy County is going with the bonds to build their new schools.
So what's, if you know, the difference for the people that don't know? I don't know. The difference between a bond and a levy.
I knew you were going to ask that question today. I thought about that coming up, that question would probably come up, and I really can't. It would take someone like Tony to probably, I don't want to misspeak is the only reason. I'm not trying to dodge the question. But the levy is specifically attached to property taxes. Okay? The bonds, you sell bonds, and then you pay for those bonds over maybe a 20 or 30-year period. A levy, which goes strictly to your property taxes, can be no more than 5 years. That's the maximum. Some run them. Now I suspect you're going to see people running them for 4, so that they can get them on the election cycle. Yeah. So those are a couple of the differences that I can tell you. But I know that I've had it on my taxes for what seems like for what has been forever, since the middle school was built in Hardy County. But
I thought, and see, I just don't understand. I thought when you bought a bond from the U.S., you got that money back. Is that what they did with the school system? So you kind of bought a bond with your taxes, but you get that money back.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to
so you're actually not paying anything. It's just the county's borrowing your money.
That very well could be, but I know that it's on it's right there on my taxes every year that I see.
So I'd love to know if someone knows the difference between a bond and a levy. Let me know.
But I can tell you the levy is only for specified short period of time, and it's property taxes that address. I'm just much more familiar with the levy because that's what we do in Grand County.
Okay. Well, that's the levy. That's just the levy issue.
Okay, what else you got?
So I have a question.
Yes.
And this shocked me, and I want to know. I don't know if it dates back to when President Bush was in office and the No Child Left Behind or what. How can a student fail 2 core classes and still go on to the next grade? It's just, to me, that boggles my mind. So is that No Child Left Behind in action?
No, that's not No Child Left Behind in action. And the legislature just passed and put into law that starts now. It's called the Third Grade Success Act. And that says that any child now entering kindergarten cannot go beyond 3rd grade without being able to read on level and do a variety of other things. However, going back to your question, a lot of things, and there is no easy answer, and I don't think any superintendent would sit here and tell you today that there's an easy answer to this. A lot of things go into what you're referring to as retention. All of the research says that retention should not take place, for the most part, after you get past kindergarten or 1st grade. It just shows that it's not. It doesn't help. There's no benefit to it. Now, retention in elementary and not passing in probably middle school or high school, like you're talking about, are 2 different animals to a certain extent. But you look at when say, for example, a SAT team gets together and makes that decision on a child, you take everything into account. The social ramifications. This child is going to be 16 years old in 8th grade, for example, or whatever it might be. What are other options that we can do here? Can we have credit recovery in place and try to get this child to come to summer school to get the recovery, whatever it might be? But there is no easy answer to that one, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there is.
Yeah, it
does boggle the mind.
I'd
It
never
does.
heard that before. Like, I mean, I went to school a while ago,
Right. I did too.
and if you failed, guess what? You're back. And I didn't know what had changed, how that had changed. But you're saying now that there's a group of people.
Usually, it's a SAT team.
Okay, that
School
SAT stand
student
for something?
assistant team.
Okay.
And that team would be the classroom teacher, should be the parents, should be the administrator, special ed teacher if they're involved. Whoever needs to be comprised of on that team. Sometimes it's a child advocate. What's in the best interest of this child? Is it in the best interest of this child to retain them and have them repeat this class? Or should we move them on next year, maybe bring in special help for them, have them go to summer school? What's in this specific? So each one's looked at specifically.
And how do you figure out, and maybe this is a gray area because each child is different, but how do you figure out what is best for the child? This is just my thinking. I'm not a teacher. I don't know. That if I don't grasp something in 5th grade, when I get to 6th grade, I'm that much farther behind. How am I going to grasp that? I would assume, and like I said, I'm not a teacher, that each grade builds upon
it does
what you learned last year.
Right, and you're bringing up some of the most difficult, complex questions that we face in education. And typically the way we address that, and it is to, I think, a large extent successful, is let's say you're struggling in 3rd grade in math, certain math concepts. Rather than retain you and have you repeat 3rd grade, you go to 4th grade. However, we build into the schedule what's called intervention. And your intervention is going to be different than my intervention because I didn't struggle. I excelled. So I'm going to have an intervention block built in for acceleration. You are going to have an intervention block built in where you go to, and we it might be the Title I teachers. It may be other personnel that we have, but we set apart that intervention schedule to help try to catch you up with what you struggle with, but not leave you behind.
And is that done like during school hours? Is that do the kids still have like what we used to call a study hall? Is how old I am. Is there something like that now? I mean, is it?
They're not really.
How is that built into the curriculum then? Just during the class?
When you put your schedule, when the principals, for example, at the elementary level, when a team of teachers, say 4th grade, 5th grade, whatever team it is, submit their schedule to the principal, they must submit an intervention schedule that the principal looks at and then sends to the central office that we look over and say that suffices. That meets the needs of what we need to do to try to play catch up with this child. Because when you retain a child, let's say it was you struggling in 3rd grade again, and we hold you back, there are social stigmas built into that. You're now the tallest kid in the class.
I was never the tallest
well, you
kid
would
in
be
the
then. There are other issues other than just the academics. Yeah. So the research shows that there's just so much negativity built into retention that move the child, but build in those interventions. Sometimes that intervention is testing them for special services. Sometimes it's not a special service. They just need that extra help. And that's what the intervention.
What are the studies that? I'm not a psychologist. What are the studies that show that the social stigma of staying behind actually harms the child?
Well, let me tell you this. This is
because my grandfather always said he loved 4th grade so much he decided to stay another year.
Oh, really? Okay, well, let me tell you how retentions were handled when we were on state takeover with Dr. Bolton, who I admire greatly, and she was the superintendent at the time. Let's say, for example, we had 7 retentions at PES. I was required to have the teacher put a folder together on that child, give me all the testing they'd done, their birth date, their everything you can know about that child, and I would take that stack with her, and we would go over with a fine-tooth comb, and I would have to convince her that child was a good candidate for retention, because she would tell you that the research shows that retention, in most cases, does not work. It doesn't help. Now, ultimately, and she would say, and I appreciated this, it's in code. It's the principal's call. It's the final call is the principal. But when you're sitting there with the superintendent, and the superintendent says, that's not a good retention candidate, I'm probably going to agree with her unless I can convince her otherwise. So she was like, how did she describe it? It was such a good way that she described it. We it's like doing surgery, and you don't come in with a butcher knife. You come in with a fine-tooth scalpel when you do retentions, and there are just unique situations where it really is the best thing for that child.
So is there, during a class like this, is it just extra teaching that they receive in the class?
No.
Or
most of the time, no. Let me see. You bring up a good point. I'm going to try to explain how it would happen. Let's say we have 3 fourth grade teachers, and let's say you struggle in reading, okay? And what we're really finding out is you struggle with comprehension. That's just, you can read fine, you can decode words, but you really struggle with telling me what you read. So what we would do during the intervention block, let's say normal reading goes from 8 o'clock till 9:30. But we have a reading intervention block built in from 1 to 1:45 each day. During that 1 to 1:45 time, the 3 teachers plus an intervention teacher, let's say a Title I teacher, would come, and you would divide the kids up into, since you now have 4 teachers, because the intervention teacher comes to help, you would divide the kids up into 4 groups and where they needed to go. And all the kids that struggle with comprehension would go with the one teacher during intervention that works specifically with comprehension. This teacher might work specifically with phonics, the kids that show that they just struggle with phonics. This group may go with the teacher that the kids show that they struggle with the first sounds of the words or fluency in their reading. So that's how an intervention would work, and that would hopefully, since rather than retain you and have you completely repeat 3rd grade, we bring you to 4th grade and give you an hour each day of comprehension intervention, because that's what you struggle.
Something that happens every day.
Every day. Intervention is in the schedule every day.
Okay. It's been a long time since I've been in school, and you hear stuff and you're like, boy, it wasn't that way in my day.
Right.
It's
changed, and that's why it's so important that I, as a superintendent, try to keep up on everything. I try to attend our monthly trainings that are offered through the Superintendent Association. I just came from a 3-day conference in Glade Springs that had a couple really good speakers there, and they always go over all the legislative updates and so forth. So if I don't keep up, I fall behind. If we don't keep up on our maintenance things, our schools fall behind. All those things, it's just continuous. It's just like, I think the best example I gave, or I can give, I think, is if you went to a doctor and you were going to have serious surgery done, and you asked the doctor when was the last time he went to a training or anything, he said 30 years ago. He still does things the same way he did 30 years ago. And let's say it's heart surgery, and you ask him, have you ever heard anything about stents? Nah, I've never heard of stents. What are those? You wouldn't want that doctor doing an operation on you, most likely. Well, it's the same way in education. Our teachers, our administrators, the superintendent, we need to stay up on all the new things that come our way as much as possible. And there are so many changes from the way things were done when you and I were in school. And I'm not going to say that what was done when you and I were in school was necessarily wrong. It was just, that's the way it was then. We have so many things coming at us right now. The one that really worries me, we've never even talked about today, is artificial intelligence. I just don't know.
Yeah, how are you cracking down on that with papers and things
well,
like that?
Well, they're supposed to be, and again, who would have ever thought, here's something, again, we have to purchase without really any kind of funding source, but there are programs that you can purchase, supposedly, that can identify whether a student's work is authentic or if it's artificial intelligence. How that works, I don't know. But that's just another thing that, again, if we don't keep up on these things, we're just going to lag behind. But anyway, you had some tough questions today, JR.
I tried, but we didn't get to everything of yours. Summer slide.
Summer slide, thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. I did write that down. When I had the last steering committee meeting, and I asked the steering committee members, I said, I'll probably be doing a podcast with JR in the next couple of weeks, sometime over the summer. what would you like for me to talk about? Any topics? And the one person on there said, please talk about the summer slide. Summer slide, it's not going down a sliding board. It's not having fun. Summer slide is, we do a benchmark on a student at the end of the school year. We do a benchmark on that student at the beginning of the next school year. Guess what we find out?
Yeah. The slide.
The slide.
Yeah. See, I teach now, so I
Right.
do realize that.
Right. That's a major thing that we fight in education. So
It seems like the first couple of weeks are just review.
it's
and
review
catch up.
because of the summer slide. So to help ease the issues with summer slide, what I was asked to share with you is to really encourage parents, take your child to the library, read to them over the summer. Maybe have them do a little reading pod where they get with their friends and read a book and talk about it. Review, if they're going into third grade, for example, start reviewing multiplication facts with them because they're going to have to learn their multiplication facts in third grade. There are things that can be done. Call your teacher that you had and say, I know my student had a good year this year, but I don't want them to slide starting next year. What are some things you would suggest I work on? They'll be glad to share that with you, but that's what the summer slide is. We fight it every year, and if parents, and I know parents are busy with 101 other things, but if they could put a little time away each evening to read with their child, have them do their numeracy skills. Those are the two big things, the reading and the numeracy. That would help, I think, prevent some of the summer slide issues we have.
So you're saying that before they get on the slide at the pool, I have to have my lifeguard say, read this sentence or do a multiplication?
If you would do that for us, that would be fantastic. I would appreciate that a lot.
It is rough. We try to, with Autumn, try to say, here, just go and read this, just
Great.
catch up. Or we'll be riding in the car and I'll be like, okay,
Right.
Autumn, 10 divided by 2.
Right.
Try
That's
to
so
keep up
important.
on there.
So important. But that's what I want to talk about with the summer slide. And I wish I could have answered the bond versus levy a little bit better for you, but I'll get some information from Tony on that and get back with you.
We'll have Tony comment in the.
He's actually on vacation this week, so he can't.
These
comment.
people that take vacations.
But one thing I will say about Tony, and I'll say this when it comes to the levy or anything else dealing with finance, we had a very clean audit, both at all of our schools and in the central office.
You mean you didn't have $6 billion that came up missing like the the Pentagon just had?
We did not. We did not, and I'm very, very proud of that. I will answer any question to the best of my knowledge about any of the money we spend anytime. I cannot see where, and I know there will always be people who think that we waste money, but I'm one of these people in my own household. I can't stand waste, and I'm the same way in the school system. I just can't stand to see us waste money in any way, shape, or form. All of our board minutes with the bills we pay are online for people to review. Everything is there to see, and with the upcoming levy, what I think I'm hearing that people would like to see is continue some of those things that we do. Is there a way we can maybe also address the whole child by doing some things for the community? And what are the new things, facility-wise and classroom-wise, that we need to do to continue to offer not a good, but a great education to our kids in Greene County?
Something that you might want to consider putting on that would be good, because I know there's already, it's either state or federal funding for English language classes.
Oh.
But a little kick there so that people that are coming in that do not know the English language at all can get teaching.
That's why I like to reach
extra
out.
teaching.
That's why I like to reach out and talk, because I would have never thought of that, and that's a great idea. Because we're going to have more of those.
Yeah.
As time goes on, I think Hardy County probably has a lot more than we do right now.
Yeah, and they said that they get funding for each child.
Okay.
I think they said it was federal funding.
I'll have to look into that.
So each child should be getting federal funding to learn just for English language.
Right. A lot of times, though, when you get the federal funding, it's a very basic amount, and it's nice if you can.
Yeah, it was. I think what they said it wasn't enough to do. I can't speak because I can't remember now, but it was like something enough not to have like a tutor for each one.
Right.
But they had enough to be able to have a teacher that was able to
Right.
teach the English
Right.
they needed.
Right. That's a great idea. I'll see how we can address that.
Yep.
Don't let me forget it. Send me a text or something. Remind me of that.
I will. Well, I hope this was informative. We're leaving the comments open for this one. You can give your own levy ideas. You can say whether you're for or against. Tony, if you get back from your vacation, you can comment, what is the difference between a bond and a levy? I'd love to know. But for right now, JR signing off, Explore Grant County. Everyone, have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.